welcome to the hip series with Pure Yoga. So we're going to be working on the hip mobility. Quite often hip mobility can be quite restricted if you particularly sit at a desk all day or if you're driving a lot. So this hip mobility series will really help stretch out the lower back. It will help the thighs, the hamstrings, or the pelvis area, because we work on above and below the hips to create that mobility through the hips. So we're going to start in our tabletop position today. So coming to bring your shoulders over the heel of your hands, your knees underneath your hips, and just give those hips a little rock from side to side. Trying to get a nice straight tabletop position with the back. Having that stack of the shoulders and the knees brings us into that tabletop position. So as you rock those hips a little from side to side, you can feel the stretch on the outside of the hips when you go to one direction and then to the other. Start to bring that a little into the wrists as well, so you can get a little bit of mobility through those wrists. And then bring that to a stillness. Bring the hands just a little further forward. And then start to bring the hips forward and back. And just get that mobility in that hip socket. Keeping a nice strong core centre. So try not to collapse in the arch of the lower back. Trying to keep that neutral pelvis. Just a couple of more times, rocking forward and backwards. And then bring that back to a stillness. Bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. And then start to bring your right knee towards the right elbow. And then to make circles with that knee all around. So making a full circle, taking it up and back. Back in towards the elbow. And then when you get back to the elbow, take it the opposite direction. So bringing it back to the knee, up and out to the side, back to that right elbow. Just warming up that socket joint. And then when you bring it back to the elbow, just hold it at the elbow just for a little compression through the hip flexor. And then bring that right knee back to meet the left knee. Bring your left knee to the left elbow. And then make circles going back first, full round circles with the knee. Really feeling that moving around that left socket. Next time you come back to the knee, take it the opposite direction. So bringing back to the right knee, up and out to the side, back to the left elbow. Keep pushing into those hands, keep that core strength nice and strong. One more time on this side. And then bring that left knee back to meet the right. Just have a little rock of the hips side to side. Forwards and backwards. And then bringing your right foot out to the side. Let that right foot plant nice and flat on the floor. And we're going to rock forwards and backwards with the hips. Taking the hips back towards the heel of the left on the inhale and back forward on the exhale. So taking it back on the inhale, taking it to its full stretch of that inside of the groin on the right side, back forward on your exhale. So we'll do that 2 more times. Keep using that breath. 1 more time. And back forward. This time allow that body to stay back and just hold it in the stretch for a few breaths. So we should really be pushing the whole of the sole of the right foot into the mat, toes pointing forward in front of the heels. And just breathe into this space if you want to come down onto the elbows. Feeling that stretch on the inside of that right thigh. Just holding here just for 1 more breath, relaxing through the neck and the face muscles. Quite often if you feel tension somewhere, you'll bring it into another place, maybe grimace through the face a little bit. So just relax the jaw, relax the forehead. And if you're down on forearms, come back up onto the hands. Bring your right knee back to meet the left and just take a rock of the hips from side to side. Take a rock of the hips forwards and backwards. And then bring it back centralised. Bring your left foot out to the side. Whole of that sole of that left foot planting to the floor. And then rock forwards and backwards. So the inhale takes you back. The exhale takes you forward. Nice slow movements. Try and find a bit of fluidity as you move forward and back, rather than making it jerk. We have 2 more rocking forwards and back. 1 more. And then this time hold as you take the hips back. Remember, you can come down onto the forearms if you wish. Relax through the neck and the face. Feel that stretch on the inside of that left thigh. Try not to hollow through the lower back. Try and bring that belly up and away from the floor. Keep that engagement, those ribs drawn in. And then making your way back up onto the hands. Bring that left knee back in to meet the right and just give those hips a little rock from side to side. So you may want a cushion here. We're going to bring the legs over, bring the left knee into the centre, bring your right knee behind that left knee and then widen the feet as much as you can. And then start to send those hips back to that space that you've created behind the back of that right knee. That may feel tight, so you may need to put a cushion underneath the bum. So we're bringing ourselves into what we call cow face legs. And whilst we're sitting in this position and you're happy to do so, remember, build yourself up with the hips as high as you need to be. We're just going to take a little bit of shoulder mobility. So lifting your left hand up to the ceiling, then bringing the left palm onto the back of the body. Bring your right hand forward, turn the palm to the right side, bring it behind the back, bring the back of the hand up the back to maybe find fingertips of the left hand, or just bring them as close as you want them, your body allows it to be. And when you're in this space, try and think about knitting the ribs towards the hips so we're not arching in that lower back again. Just feeling the stretch through the outside of the hips, the stretch through the shoulders. Holding in this space just for a few breaths. Letting the outside of both hips feel that stretch. Maybe that stretch comes into those IT bands along the outside of both thighs. 1 more breath here. And then release the hands. Rock yourself back forward. Hands under the shoulders. And then take a swap of the legs. So this time your right knee comes into the centre. You bring your left knee behind your right. Open the feet out. Maybe have that cushion to come back onto. And then start to walk the bum into that space in between both feet. Once you've found that space, just make sure both sit bones are nice and grounded, nice and tall through the spine. And then this time reach your right hand up to the ceiling. Bring the palm of the right onto the back of the body. Bring your left hand forward, turn your palm to the left. Bring it behind the back. Maybe find an interlace of the fingers, or just both hands maybe reaching towards each other. Once you've found the hands, try and knit those ribs together again towards the hips so we're not dumping into that lower spine. But grow tall through the spine of the head, crown of the head even, not spine of the head, and feel that grounding through both sit bones. Breathe into this space. Notice the stretch on the outside of both hips, maybe into those IT bands. Obviously remember you can have those hips sat a little higher by popping yourself on a cushion or maybe a yoga block. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. Just take another moment in this space. And then release the hands, bring the hands to the floor. Start to walk the hands back forward and underneath the shoulders. Uncross the legs, knees underneath the hips still. And just move those hips again from side to side. And then forwards and backwards. Then step your left knee back a little further and step your right foot towards the outside edge of the right hand. So squeezing that right knee in towards the right shoulder, sinking the hips as low as you can take them, activating the glutes on that left side to push that left hip flexor into a stretch. So you may feel that stretch now into that hip flexor of the left side, into that left thigh, front side of the left thigh, but you're also activating the glutes on the back of the leg and activating those hamstrings on that left side. So we're strengthening the back chain of muscles and lengthening the front chain of muscles. Now you can choose to either stay here or you can use the block to bring your elbows onto or a cushion, or just bring those elbows down to the floor if they reach to get a little more stretch through the hip of that right side. Try and have both arms level so you've got that full feeling and sensation in both arms as you push into the mat if you've come lower or pushing it into a block. And create some space around the back of the neck. Keep squeezing that right knee as close as you can into that right shoulder, pushing into the big toe mount of the right foot. Hold it here in this space just for one more breath. And then coming back up onto your hands if you've grounded down into the floor with the elbows. Tuck your back toes under and lift up your back knee. Then come onto the knife edge of your left foot, the knife edge of your right foot. Bring your left hand maybe forward slightly and sink that left hip as close towards the floor as you can. Bring your right hand onto the right knee. And just feel that stretch along the outside of the right hip into the IT band, outside of the left hip and into that left IT band and into that left side waist. The hip sinking as low as you can take it to the floor. Soft elbow on that left arm so you're not locking out in that joint. Maybe that left shoulder creeps up to the ear a little bit. Maybe sink, maybe bring yourself out of that sink and push into that left hand a little more. Holding in this space just for one more breath. Then start to come back forward. Drop that left knee down. Bring your right knee back to meet the left. And just have a little rock of those hips from side to side. Bring a rock forward and backwards. And then take the right knee back a little further, bring your left foot to the outside of the left hand. Then squeeze the right glutes to push those hips of the right down on the right side down, stretching in the hip flexor of the right side, going into that thigh on the right side. Squeezing that left knee into the left shoulder to activate that left leg. Really push those hips down as much as you can. Feel that stretch all the way up into that right side waist. And then if you want to come lower like we did on the other side, come down onto the forearms. Sometimes one side feels a little more accessible than the other. So if you need to lift the elbows a little bit and bring a block underneath, or bring a cushion underneath the elbows, and then just relax the neck as you find yourself in this space. Holding here just for another couple of breaths. Keep activating that right glute to push that right hip lower. Keep squeezing that left knee as close towards that left shoulder as it can go. Then if you're down on the forearms, come back up onto the hands. tuck your back toes under and lift up your back knee. Drop onto the outside knife edge of the right foot, knife edge of the left foot, and sink that right hip a little closer. Maybe you need to move that right hand a little further forward to do so. And then just bring that left hand onto that left knee, just opening that left knee out to the side. So you should feel a stretch on the outside of the left thigh. You should feel a stretch into the waist of the right side. So as I said, when we're working pelvis mobility, we try and stretch the above and below muscles around the pelvis. Holding it in this place. Try not to let that right shoulder come up towards the ear. Push into that mat, stabilise into that right hand, but soften that right elbow. One more breath here. And then start to bring your body back around, coming back onto the toes of the back foot. Drop the right knee, bring the left knee back to meet the right, and just take a little rock of the hips from side to side. So we're going to make our way now into a seated position. So just bringing the feet underneath and crossing the legs, rolling onto the bum, or swing the legs around if that doesn't feel accessible. Maybe you want to elevate the pelvis here again and maybe sit on a cushion or a block, or you can stay seated on the mat. So taking a bend into your left knee and bring that left foot around so it sits at the side of the left hip. Then just try and neutralise the hips so both sit bones are grounded. Now the reason why you may need to elevate the hips here is if it's tight in the knee. So find your space, toes of the right foot back towards the shins, grow tall through the spine, and then as you breathe it out, start to fold from the hips, just bringing that torso forward as much as you can, using the hands to keep the body in the centre, because what this pose wants to do is push you over to the right side. But we're trying to keep everything centralised, but with this leg being in a different position to the right leg, it will want to move you over to that right side. So just use your breath here, inhale, length, exhale to find depth. Use that abdominal strength to draw that chest a little closer to the thigh. Go to wherever you feel comfortable, stretching down the hamstrings of that right leg and into the calves and Achilles. So again, working the stretch through the muscles just below the pelvis, but also going down into the lower leg. Holding it here in this heron pose, just for another breath. And then bringing yourself back up. And then take that turn of the knee. We're going to bring that left foot now into the inside of the right thigh and let that knee drop out to the side. So in the other pose we was in internal rotation. Now we're taking that hip into external rotation. Right leg stays straight. This time on your breath in, reach up with the arms, lengthen through the waist, and then on your out breath, fold from the hips. Bring those hands forward to as far forward as you can, reaching as much towards that right foot, and then just let the hands settle wherever they reach. Use your in-breath to create a little elongation through the spine, and the out-breath to maybe fold a little deeper over that right leg. So remember, that might be that you're up here. Remember, you may be still sitting on a block or a cushion to elevate the hips. It just gives you a little more space if the hips are elevated, particularly if you are tight in that back chain of the right leg. So just use your breath, hold it here, keep long through the crown of the head, keep grounded through both sit bones, keep trying to squeeze the outside of that left hip to bring that left knee a little closer towards the mat, so activating that left outside glute to bring that left knee down. Then start to walk the hands back towards you, lifting the shoulders back over the hips. Straighten out with your left leg and give a little paddle through the knees. So we're going to take that on the other side. So this time the left leg stays straight. We take a bend into your right knee and bring that right foot to the outside of the right hip, and placing the top of the foot on the mat. Make sure you feel nice and level through the pelvis, or as level as you can with this leg being an internal rotation. Left toes back towards the shins, grow tall through the spine, and then as you breathe out, squeeze the abdominals back and walk those hands forward to fold towards the toes of that left foot. Always activating the foot on that left side so we get into the lower part of the muscles. Activate the upper thigh to push the knee down to stretch through the hamstrings. Quite often it's tight hamstrings and tight glutes that actually cause lower back issues, but we also sometimes need strength work, and the strength and flex work helps mobility and will give you a happier pelvis. Use that breath again. Try not to let yourself rock too much to that left side. Relax through the shoulders and the jaw. Keep squeezing those abdominals back as you breathe out. Maybe find that little millimetre of space, a little more range of movement. And then starting to bring the shoulders back up. Bring your right knee and right foot back around. Bring your right foot to the inside of the left thigh and let that right knee drop out into external rotation. Squeeze the outside of that right hip to try and bring that right knee as close to the mat as it will come. Still active in that left leg. This time as we breathe in, we reach up with the hands, lengthen through the spine, and then on our out breath, we fold from the hips. Try not to roll through the back as you start to bring those hands forward towards that left foot, and bringing them to relax down onto the mat. Use another in-breath to elongate and an out-breath to squeeze those abdominals back to bring that body as much over that left thigh as you can. Stay active through that left thigh to push that left knee down. Stay active through the foot to bring those toes back to get into that lower part of the leg. Keep squeezing the outside of that right glute to bring that knee down a little closer. Holding in this space, just for another couple of breaths. And then start to walk back with the hands, up with the shoulders. Bring that right leg back straight and just give a paddle of those legs. So we're now going to take you into frog pose. So you need to be turning to the long edge of your mat and have your knees as wide as you can take them. And then have the heels in line with the knees, with the toes pointing out. So long as we've got that 90-degree angle in the ankles, 90-degree angle in the knees. And then from this point, try and keep those hips in line with the knees as you maybe come down onto the forearms. Widen those legs maybe a little more. Heels behind the knees. And try and tether those ribs and hips so we're not sinking or dumping into that lower back. Widen the fingers. Breathe into that space on the inside of the thighs, getting into that groin. Again, another tight spot around the upper legs. Holding in frog pose for a couple of breaths. So the key point here is definitely not letting the hips come too far forward, keeping them in line with the knees. And keeping the ankles in line with the knees with the feet pointing out. Some people have really good range of movement here and they can bring almost the inside of their thighs to the mat. It's a particular tightness for me. Although it's not a favoured position for me to come to, it's one that I like to challenge myself with every so often, because sometimes you'll stay away from things that really don't work for you. But sometimes you have to step into those poses. Get rid of those fears, those tension spots. And it's usually fear that creates that tension. So just think about the areas that feel tight and breathe into that space. So we're just going to hold here just for another couple of breaths. And then coming back up onto your hands. So to come out of this pose, just bring the knees in a little bit at a time. And then the feet. And then bring those knees underneath the hips. Make your way back into a seat. And then just bring the soles of the feet together. Take a hold of the soles of the feet and then let those knees drop out to the side, finding Baddha Konasana, butterfly legs, lifting up through the chest, relaxing down with the shoulders. And then on your out breath, start to fold from the hips, just bringing that torso forward, pushing those elbows to the inside of the thighs. And we're going to have one more breath in this space, and then we have one more pose to finish on, which will be figure 4 on both legs. But we're going to be doing it in a seated position. So just lifting those shoulders again back up over the hips. I'll face the front of the mat and I'll mirror image you here. So bringing your left foot onto the top of the right thigh, toes of the left foot back towards the shins. Bring the hands behind just for support, and then start to bring that left heel in towards you, and then bring that chest towards that right foot. So we've got another external rotation of the hip. We're trying to squeeze that chest towards that left foot, maybe bringing that right foot back a little closer towards the bum. I think I just gave you left and rights wrong there. So because I'm mirror imaging you, my left foot is on top of my right thigh and my right foot is squeezed back towards my bum. Keep breathing into that space of the outside of the left hip, getting into that piriformis muscle, the band of muscle that slings from the front of the hip around to the sacrum of the lower spine, connecting and supporting that pelvis. Just holding, just for another breath or two. Keep trying to encourage that chest a little closer. Maybe your knee on your right side isn't quite as bent as much as mine. It may be the foot's a little further forward. Just go to the range of movement that works for your body. Challenge it, but don't hurt it. And then taking yourself out of the pose, so straightening out with that right leg, straightening out with the left leg. Then take a bend into your right knee, place that right foot onto the top of the left thigh, right toes back to the shins. Lean back slightly and start to bring that left foot in towards you. Once that left foot's come as close as you can bring it, push into the hands and push that chest towards the right foot. Keep those toes active on that right leg to support that knee joint. Remember, once you've found a place, maybe you can go a bit deeper. Once you've breathed into it slightly, maybe that left foot can come in a little closer. Keep both sit bones nice and supported onto the floor. We've got that external rotation now on that right leg, getting into the piriformis muscle on that right hip. Holding for another few breaths. Just noticing minimal movement within the stretch. Those little millimeters of range of movement are really important. They come with longer holds. One more breath here. And then release both legs back out. Give a paddle of the legs. Then take yourself into a cross-leg position, bringing one heel into the groin, then the other. Bringing the hands on top of the thighs. Take a roll of the shoulders. Let them relax down towards the hips. Take a close of the eyes. Just take a few moments to notice the sensations of the body as you've taken those stretches, those circles around those hip sockets, noticing how the thighs feel, noticing how the lower back feels. Just releasing tension around that center of the body. Take a breath in. Take a breath out and bring the hands to the chest and a soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, your words, your hearts, from my heart to yours. Namaste.